Well, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, no matter what time of the day it is where you're at, whether you're watching us live or you're watching us on the replay. We want to appreciate you being with us. It's always an honor, it's a privilege, and it's a pleasure for you to join us here on the CVC Home Service Success Network. This is sponsored and presented by CVC Success Group. And why do we do this? To give you some ideas, to give you some processes, to share with you some concepts that just may help you get to that lofty level that we all strive to get for in business out there. So we try to come up with good topics, and today is no exception. So what we're going to talk about today is what I call the successful business trifecta. And what do I mean by that? Well, to run a successful business, you really got to have three things that are really shining for you out there. And what are those three things? They are leadership, motivation, and culture. And the whole thing is the companies that crack this code of how to get these three things, they don't just succeed, they actually end up dominating their markets. Building and sustaining a great workforce that drives your business towards its goals remains today one of the biggest challenges that faces managers today. But if you can crack this code, you can truly dominate your market. These businesses combine three essential elements: a great leadership team, a motivated workforce, and a culture that customers can feel the moment that you walk through their door or they have contact and build a relationship with you. It's truly remarkable. So, Cheryl, let me go to you first. As we talk about these three things, what comes to your mind?
You know, the culture thing, I believe all of them are important. But the thing for leadership that I really believe in is the leaders have to live the culture, not just explain it. They can't motivate people into a culture unless they are contributing to it also. But leadership is one of those things that not everybody can aspire to because they look more inward and they don't take their inward self and take it outward. But you've got to look at yourself first. You've got to have yourself aligned with the three prospects that you're talking about before you can actually teach it or show it or even help to hope to make it happen in your company. Before it can be your company thing, it has to be in your soul.
Right. And here's what you got to look at. When we talk about the trifecta, these three essential elements, at its core, leadership is the ability to influence, to guide, and to inspire individuals or groups to achieve the common goals in a way that maximizes their performance, builds growth, and builds trust. But by that definition, while accurate, doesn't capture the real magic of leadership. I think President Dwight D. Eisenhower put it best when he said, leadership is the art of getting someone else to do something because he wants to do it. Think about that for just a minute. Imagine if everyone you led followed that philosophy. How much easier it would be for you to manage the day to day affairs of your company. And I'm going to repeat that. Leadership is the art of getting someone else to do something because he wants to do it. Josh, as I say those words, what comes out in your mind? What are you hearing?
Getting people to follow the SOPs, really. That was, I mean, getting someone to want to do it. The understanding, I know it used to be when you were an SOP kick, you always had to explain what, there used to be a section on the SOPs, and I think it's kind of gone away, and I haven't seen this for a while. But what is the purpose of the SOP and how it affects people? Does that make sense?
Yes.
They used to be, so you'd have the system, but then you always had to write about the feelings of the SOP for some people to understand that if this isn't followed, then these things cascade from here.
Okay. Anything else you would add to that?
I would say these are separate roles. The leader, the motivator, and the cultural thing. I was telling you about, I watched that show Ted Lasso, and on Ted Lasso, he wasn't the tactician. He was the culture builder, and then he brought in other people that handled. Then he had a leadership guy and another coach, and then he had a tactician and another coach, and he brought that together. But quite often, like I was the SOP guy, so I'm not the culture guy. Like I had one of the things were that at their best, I had a service manager that was really a culture guy. So finding someone that offsets your personality to do these things is, I would say, pretty important.
Yeah. And when you talk about motivation, this can actually be a really big puzzle for people, because motivation is actually an internal drive or an external influence that prompts a person towards a goal to fulfill the need. It's what causes you to act. You've got to understand there are two distinct types of motivation. One of them is intrinsic motivation. Okay? It comes from inside. Then we have extrinsic motivation. It's driven by the external rewards or the desire to avoid punishment, working overtime for a bonus, studying hard to avoid failure, or competing to win recognition. So, Cheryl, as I go through that, how can we read people to see if they have intrinsic motivation or intrinsic motivation? How do we recognize in the people we are working with?
Well, you're going to actually see some of both in everyone, just a tad. But you've got to be able to watch the signs. Let's take visionary and implementer, same thing. You've got two sides. And you have to figure out where someone's at before you approach them on things, because they're going to totally lean right or left, whichever side's more prominent in them. And if you go to the other, they're going to wall you off. And so a lot of it's just by being aware of people. You have to be, as a leader, you have to be a people watcher. And you have to pay attention to these people and how they assimilate things, how they respond to other people's vocals. Communication is probably the biggest thing when you're trying to decide who is on which side and which way you should lead. But a leader needs to know both sides so they can pick up the small things, because a lot of times these people don't come around with a flamboyant thing of, okay, I'm here and I do this and I do that. Especially if you're a disc and you're in the S and C, they are really hard to read. So you have to be very cautious and very aware of people around you.
Yeah. And I think the first thing that a manager has to do is, in order to build motivation, in order to motivate people and to build your culture, is I think you have to look within yourself and see what kind of leader you are and what is your natural charisma. Some people just have a natural charisma about themselves that people will follow that leader. And this is where you got to build your leadership skills in order for that to happen, because your company culture encompasses a variety of factors, including your core values, your company mission, your leadership style, your communication processes, the work environment, the recognition systems you have, and performance expectations. And I think you got to spell out the expectations clearly. I mean, it's just like when you hire somebody new and you have an attendance issue right off the bat. It's because somebody did not onboard them, or in the interview process, something fell through. I think it also goes down to, you got to nip your problems in the bud when they first start and don't let them linger and become long-term habits. Josh, you held your hand up. Do you have something to add there, buddy?
Yeah, I know Brandy, if you were late for an interview, wouldn't even interview you.
Yeah.
She said that's a core value, and you're just not going to it's just not going to work.
That was it. If you were late for that interview, yeah, she disqualified you right there when you had to do that. Okay. So Chuck Roydhouse has just added something. I'm gonna put it on the screen. And he says here, you must lead by example to create enthused employees trained and trusted to move the company vision and mission forward. This gives the employee ownership, skin in the game. People need to be valued and appreciated as a team member. Dead on the money, Chuck. Exactly right. You've got to look within yourself in order to build that, because unless you have great leadership skills, you're never going to motivate people to where they want to do the things that need to be done. So does it all come down to leadership? In many cases, it does. Leadership is what's going to move you to the next level. And motivation and culture is going to help get you there and keep you there and sustain it. So Cheryl, anything you would add to this subject?
I'm going to take motherhood into this. I want you to repeat what what Dwight said. Eisenhower. Just repeat it one time, and then I'm going to take it.
What he said, leadership is the ability to get people to do things because they want to do them, not because they've been coerced, forced, threatened into doing it.
And this is where I take it to motherhood. Mothers are notorious for bribing their children with a piece of candy to get them to do something. A business owner, leader, owner, whatever, is many times bribing an employee by using money, an increase in salary, an increase in something there, when either one of them should be telling them why they ought to be doing something. And I think that's number one where we miss the boat on a lot of things that you're talking about today. We neglect telling people why. We just bribe them to get them to do what we're wanting. We need to explain why. And as you are always talking, get them on board, because without being on board, you're going to bribe them the rest of their employment.
Yeah. And, and the thing is, bribery is not good. And issuing threats aren't good. Neither one of those are going to accomplish what you're looking for in a company culture that gets there. A lot of times what I see happens, a company goes through a big loss. A key person leaves the company. And all of a sudden we start to look at, what do we do now? What do we do now? Because we've lost this key ingredient in our success. So folks, the whole thing is, take a look at your leadership skills. It starts there. Become a great leader. Read books about this. Attend seminars. Josh, you were talking about Ted Lasso. What makes him such a great mentor to look at? How do people find Ted Lasso?
Well, it's a TV personality on Apple TV. He's a football coach, became a soccer coach in a big league. And he just moves the team through culture and caring about people and, motivating them in a way that they stepped up. It was really uplifting.
Okay. And there's a lot of great role models out there that if you look, and there's so many podcasts going on and so much information shared every single day. And you've just got to spend this time, if you're going to be a successful leader, to build your skills as this leader, to recognize your own strengths and your weaknesses. Just a couple of weeks ago, we talked about visionaries and implementers or integrators. And that's what you've got to do, is you got to develop your skills as that leader. So Cheryl, anything else you'd add before we end today's episode?
I would say open up the discussion within your group. Talk to them. Don't be afraid to let them know where you're at, and be one of them instead of just that obstacle at the top.
Got you covered. Josh, anything you would add in?
No, I agree with Cheryl there. I always tried to, if there was something going on in my personal life, I didn't have a problem sharing. A lot of people know I will share with, I don't mind sharing what struggles I'm having right now. It's just part of being human. And I always made sure the guys, if I had a struggle right then and there, I'd be like, hey, I'm famous for telling them I've got some stuff going on my plate right now. I don't mind, I just need some time to deal with this, or I can't deal with your shit today, really.
Yeah, got you. Well, we hope this has been a message that may have brought you some ideas on how to build your processes, your culture, how to motivate your people better. So we appreciate you being with us today. As I've said before, it's always an honor, it's a privilege, and it's a pleasure. And let us know here at CVC Success Group how we can help you move to the level that you aspire to take your company and yourself to. And with that, we'll end this week's episode. Appreciate you being here as always. And we look forward to talking to you next week on the same time, same channel. Have a fantastic week ahead.